Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Water is essential to our survival, but the storm water we all create has harmful consequences on our environment and on our health. So today we're focusing on stormwater. To begin, we've called on one of the state's stormwater experts. I want to welcome Tom DePietro. Tom is the Deputy Director of Environmental Services for the City of South Burlington Public Works, and he manages the city's stormwater utility. Tom, good afternoon. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Fran. Thank you for having me.
So to get started, let's just make sure we're all on the same page by asking, what is stormwater?
Sure. Stormwater is water from rain or melting snow that flows off the landscape. So in many developed areas, there's impervious surfaces like roads made of asphalt or concrete sidewalks, rooftops. When water or rainwater hits those surfaces, it can't infiltrate into the ground, so it flows across the landscape, becoming stormwater runoff. Larger amounts of this water accumulate and eventually reach rivers, streams, and Lake Champlain.
Right. And so why, maybe obvious, but why is it important to manage stormwater?
A number of reasons. So South Burlington, like other communities, needs to manage stormwater runoff to protect people's home and property and infrastructure, but also, of course, the environment, specifically water bodies like our local streams and Lake Champlain. If stormwater isn't managed properly, it'll cause flooding, and heavy rains can flood streets and yards, that property damage, as I mentioned. Stormwater also picks up pollutants as it flows across the landscape. So whatever might be lying on the street or in a parking lot or whatever put in your yard, they can get flushed off and into streams in the lake. And finally, just increased volumes of water. So if we've got more water because it's falling on a parking lot and can't infiltrate into the ground, that additional volume of water will hit a small stream kind of all at once, storm, and cause stream bank erosion, which flushes sediment and nutrients downstream to Lake Champlain and other water bodies.
Right, problem. So South Burlington was the first community in Vermont to create a stormwater utility. So tell us what that means. What's a stormwater utility?
Yeah, at its simplest, a stormwater utility is just a mechanism for a community to raise funds to manage stormwater runoff. The funds can be used in a variety of ways. Probably most importantly, the way folks normally use funds is to hire the staff needed to manage stormwater. It can also be used to maintain infrastructure, construct new stormwater treatment projects, or really whatever a community needs to do to deal with stormwater runoff and stormwater pollution.
Right, and South Burlington isn't the only one. There are a couple other communities in Vermont that also have stormwater utilities.
That's right. South Burlington was first, but now there's about 5 or 6 other communities that have a utility.
Cool. And how does a town fund a stormwater utility?
Yeah, so the easiest way to think about it is a stormwater utility is funded like other utilities. So wastewater, for example, the more wastewater your home generates and sends to the treatment plant, the higher the bill you pay. The basis of stormwater fees are the same, but it's based on impervious surface. So research has shown that impervious surfaces generate more stormwater runoff. Since we can't go and measure kind of the actual volume of runoff from each property, we use that as kind of a surrogate. So the more stormwater you generate, the higher your fee is. And we determine kind of the impervious surface using satellite imagery and GIS technology to sort of measure it on an individual property basis.
So parking lots, asphalt, that kind of stuff. And so let's take a moment to look at a video that focuses on the work that you and the city of South Burlington are doing.
We'll come into some neighborhoods and everybody loves the fact that we're doing water quality work until we are tearing up the street to put in this or that, and they still love it, don't get me wrong. But it's very close to home, and so just to be able to build the support and have people understand why we have to do that, I think is a real benefit to the public and residents in the state at large.
Research shows that on a per-acre basis, developed land contributes the most phosphorus to Lake Champlain of any land use. In response to water quality concerns, the City of South Burlington created the first stormwater utility in Vermont in 2005. Its efforts have helped to meet the goals of the Lake Champlain Phosphorus TMDL by reducing phosphorus inputs from a densely populated portion of the watershed.
It's basically a funding mechanism for all the water quality, stormwater related work we need to do in South Burlington. So every developed property in the city pays a fee towards that. And then we use that money to pay for projects, do maintenance. There's a couple different ways stormwater has an impact on water quality. The first is just the volume of stormwater. So if you picture rain falling on a grass field, you don't get a lot of runoff. If that same rain event falls on a road or a driveway or a rooftop, that's all runoff. And that hits the stream all at once, it can cause stream bank erosion. Whether the sediment getting to the stream and eventually the lake is coming from the stream bank eroding or washing off that roadway, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's still part of the sediment and nutrients that are causing problems. It's in those two ways we try to, one, reduce the flow of stormwater before it gets to the stream and the lake, and then clean it up also before it gets there. And the big picture for us in South Burlington is to reduce flows in the streams, to reduce that stream bank erosion, to kind of restore the streams to health. And sort of the larger regional picture is to reduce phosphorus inputs to Lake Champlain. So these stormwater projects will do both. Most recently, we finished up a project in the Pinnacle at Spear neighborhood. When that neighborhood was initially constructed, it was constructed to older standards. And so we went back in, we took those existing footprints of those stormwater detention ponds, and we've redesigned them to modern standard. So we had one pond that we retrofit, we put a new outlet structure on. We took two other ponds and converted them into treatment wetlands. So those are much more effective at removing phosphorus than a detention pond, but they also provide that flow reduction.
Whenever we do have a rain, I will watch this pond maybe get a foot of water, and when it stops raining, it'll take 2 or 3 days for it to settle back down. And that tells me that there's a very slow filtering process. It's not just rushing out the exit culvert. I think it's needed, certainly. Even though it's a big hole in the ground, I'm glad it's here.
The city is working to address sources of phosphorus pollution from residential areas as well as other suburban land uses, such as commercial and industrial areas.
The Picard Circle project is exciting because just based on its size. So this is the largest installation of these particular infiltration chambers in the state of Vermont. We're collecting water from about a 50-acre drainage area, about 15 acres of impervious surface, and we're bringing it into these infiltration chambers. So the water is going to come into these chambers and then infiltrate right into the sandy soils that are up here around the airport before kind of flowing underground over to the stream, to the Centennial Brook.
Municipalities have an important role to play in reducing phosphorus pollution. Their successes reflect the collective priorities of their residents and the individual actions of property owners.
And I think it's something that a lot of the residents and business owners can be proud of, that we've done so much. I mean, there's certainly still a lot more to do, but we've done quite a bit, and plans to do more are still in front of us.
Impressive, Tom. And our thanks to award-winning filmmaker Vince Franke of Peregrine Productions and the Lake Champlain Basin Program for sharing that video with us. And if you're just joining us, our guest is Tom DePietro. He is the Stormwater Superintendent for the City of South Burlington. So Tom, the state of Vermont just released new regulations, stormwater regulations. What properties are going to be affected by that?
That's right. So the state of Vermont just released what they're calling the 3-9050 permit. This permit combines a couple of existing permits, renewals, property that develops and has over an acre of impervious surface has to get coverage under this. But what people are really talking about in this permit is the new 3-acre requirement. So permit, the state has identified properties that have over 3 acres of impervious surface, and this permit requires them to take a look at that property and put in treatment for those impervious surfaces. Now, this is going to impact businesses across the state, but not only private property. This is going to have impacts for a lot of public property like schools.
Sure.
These places were developed before the state had stormwater requirements and regulations. So now to go back and look at them is going to be quite an effort, and they're going to have to figure out a way to treat that water and also pay for these improvements.
Right. So keep our eyes open for that. So outside of the state's most urbanized areas that may have utilities like South Burlington, Rutland, Brattleboro, stormwater management is difficult for rural communities because of the major costs and the kind of infrastructure you're putting in. Do rural communities need the stormwater management?
They do. Research has shown that Vermont's dirt and gravel roads are a significant contributor of sediment and phosphorus pollution. So in response to this, a few years ago, the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources developed the Municipal Roads General Permit. This basically requires all towns to go and evaluate their roads, identify any deficiencies there might be, and create a schedule to complete kind of upgrades. A lot of this focuses around repairing ditches. Maybe there's a grass line ditch that's eroding, so they need to stone line it, being an outfall pipe, and stabilizing the outlet of that with some stone, just to prevent that sediment from mobilizing to streams and eventually the lake.
Right, so that's a lot of work. And you talked about there's more work to do in South Burlington. Could you elaborate on that? What's the more work that you're working on?
Yeah, so a portion of this work is just the ongoing maintenance, repair, replacement of existing infrastructure. So a lot of the storm drains and pipes in the city, they're decades old, so they're reaching the end of their useful life. So the goal is to go out and address these issues as they arise before the infrastructure fails and causes property or environmental damage. In addition, we're doing quite a bit of work to install new stormwater treatment practices. This is largely driven by regulation. So South Burlington, we have 5 streams that are impaired due to stormwater runoff. And the Agency of Natural Resources has required South Burlington and anybody else who has these impaired streams to put together what they call flow restoration plans. So a number of years ago, we put these plans together, and we identified over 150 stormwater projects that need to be done to make these streams healthy again.
Wow.
We're well into that implementation schedule. It's a 20-year plan that extends out to the year 2032. The city also has requirements under the Lake Champlain Phosphorus TMDL. So under that, and that's a newer requirement, so under that, we're required to create a phosphorus control plan where we'll do something similar. We'll identify projects where we can capture phosphorus off the landscape and remove it before it.
So we're almost out of time. So what can individuals do? Clearly, there's a lot going on. What can individuals do to keep stormwater clean?
There's a lot of things folks can do on their own property. They can pick up pet waste, pick up trash, not throw cigarette butts, on the road or outside. Properly dispose of common household wastes like motor oil. And all these small things can add up. They can participate in Green Up Day, install rain barrels, join watershed associations. I mean,
plenty people can do. I want to drive people to watch more videos and find out more about how farmers, municipalities, and all of us out there can help with a commitment to clean water. To go to www.cleanwaterwork.com. Thank you so much, Tom, and good luck to you and South Burlington for continued great work.
Yes,
and
thank you, Fran.
And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.